In this hand, you're playing a $44 tournament versus a number of mediocre American players. You have King 4 clubs, Villain 1 is a total net. What would you like to do here versus Villain 5's raise? I'm going to give you a couple of seconds on every question I ask. If you need more time, press the pause button. We go ahead and 3-bet bluff here, and it comes around to Villain 5 who calls. The board comes 3 of spades, 8 of clubs, 6 of clubs. Villain 5 checks to you. It is on you. Check or bet. That's time. If you did want to bet here, how much did you want to bet? We fire 6 big blinds. This player calls. The turn is the jack of spades. It gets checked to you. Do you want to check or bet here? Ask yourself what you would do in these situations. Obviously, you guys who pay attention to this channel more regularly can guess what I'm going to do a lot of the time, but ask yourself if you would do the same thing and question yourself why you wouldn't do the same thing if you don't do the same thing. Check your answers, check my assumptions, check your assumptions, take what works, leave the rest, and do what works for you. Now, on this turn, if you did want to bet, how much did you want to bet? You should set him up for a river jam here. So if you bet 6, an additional 12 big blinds goes in there, you're going to set him up for a river jam. He's going to have less than a pot size bet back on the river. And sometimes you don't even have to make that river jam like we saw right here. Now, why are we setting up the river bet? Why are we doing everything on this hand? Let's break it down. So the first thing, I 3-bet constantly here versus American competition because, frankly, Americans get too bored, they're not disciplined, and they raise too often. Therefore, you can do some bluffing when you're in position. Now, here, our hand isn't great to flat with. We would prefer to flat with something like King 10 of clubs, something that can flop a little bit better. Usually, when we're flatting in position, it's likely we're going to play a multi-way pot. And in multi-way pots, the average winning hand, if the pot gets very deep, the average winning hand is going to be 2 pair sets, straights or flushes. A hand like King 10 of clubs, for example, makes a lot of straights or flushes in decent pairs. This hand is very vulnerable, makes a lot of mediocre hands, so instead we're going to bluff with it. It's nice to have some kind of hand so we have a backup plan, but we're mostly bluffing with it. When we fire on this flop and this person calls, a lot of North American competition, when they see flush draws and straight draws, they play fast. They raise here with their sets. They raise here with their 2 pairs. Now, you can rule out a lot of the better hands at this point. Why? Overpairs likely would have 4-bet you pre-flop. Sets and 2 pairs likely would have check-raised you on this board. What is very likely is your opponent has 1 mediocre pair, 1 mediocre high card. It could just be an ace high. It could be ace 3 suited, ace 6 suited, 6 5 suited, 6 7 suited, 4s, 5s, 7s, 8x. That all makes sense. And on this turn, obviously, we would have preferred to hit our flush, but we don't need that if we're playing attacking style poker. We don't need that when we know our opponent is weak. So it's very likely our opponent, due to the play of the hand, has a mediocre pair, and that jack of spades is not good for them. So most people don't like folding on the turn, especially to small bets, so we set him up for the river jam. We set him up for a big bet on the river to see if he is able to make that big call. Many people are not able to make that big call. Now, when you shove on the river, let's say you shove about a pot-sized bet, that bet needs to work about 50% of the time. But oftentimes it'll work for you 70 or 80% of the time, just because people are folding most of the pairs they had on the flop. That's fantastic. That does not mean it works every single time. In fact, it could fail almost a third of the time and still be profitable. What do you do when that happens? You just go on with your life. This is why you have to play a lot of tournaments. Winning tournaments is what makes you the lion's share of profit. You can gamble up to get that first place. You can do a lot of bluffs that you wouldn't do in a satellite or in a flatter payout structure because first place has so many buy-ins loaded into it. So we set up this river bluff that we think is going to work the majority of the time. And sometimes we'll even get a fold right here, which was very nice. If you want to learn more about triple barrel bluffing, check out the link in the information section of this video. I have a full-length training package on how to triple barrel bluff. You'll love it. Go onto the website, click on the button that says, I want this. It'll get you everything. And if you want more training content just like this, go to pokerheadrush.com. That website, one more time, pokerheadrush.com.